Hello Aqua fans, I am Steve Jagari, Solution Architect at Aqua. In another video, I'll put a link up somewhere, I installed Aqua using our standard YAML install because everyone loves YAML. But it's worth knowing that there are alternatives, and one of those alternatives is using our command line utility aquactl, or for the aquactl lovers, aquactl. Aquactl. So, what I'm going to do is show you how to do it using that command line utility. Now, it's worth knowing that aquactl also does other things. It can be used to make minor policy modifications and a variety of other little API-driven things that might be a little bit more taxing if you just try to do it with the API. aquactl makes that life easier for you, very much like what kubectl does. But for this video, we're going to focus on just the install. Now, if you look at our docs, you'll see you can do it in one go, and there's pros and cons to that. What I like to do is do it in 2 steps. And we'll see that in the video. I'm going to install the console and the gateways and even a few scanners. And then what I'm going to do afterwards is I'm going to deploy my enforcers. And we'll see how fast that is. So hopefully this will be a really short video. Okay, here we go. Okay, once again we begin at a command line, our favorite place. Let's see what I've got in my install directory at the moment. I've got my kubeconfig for my new AKS cluster, which is great. I've got an application I would like to deploy, and the YAML for it there. I've got an undo script, and we'll take a look at that just so you know what it is in a moment. And I've got 2 scripts for my aquactl deployment, and there's a reason for that. I like to script things up regardless. I don't like playing around with command line parameters if I don't have to. And I've got kind of a dummy script, which is the same as this one, with all my credentials hidden so I can show you what's in it, right? Because I'm a security guy. Yeah. First thing I need to do, though, is make this the official cluster that I'll be working on, and we all know how to do that. Heaven forbid we try to install into some place that we don't, we're not supposed to, and I've got a lot of clusters kicking around, so I'm just going to set that up at the moment to be that. Therefore, I'm not making any strange I'm not pointing my weapons at the wrong cluster. Let's just take a look at what we have just to make sure. Okay, good, good. This list looks like a pretty fresh AKS. I can kind of tell also that I've got 3 nodes present. So yeah, this looks pretty much ready to go. All right, now what I am missing is actually the aquactl executable. I don't have that here, so I'm gonna have to go get that. So let's clear that out. And let's go to the documentation. So here I am, docs.aquasec.com, and I'm at the aquactl first, pretty much the first thing on the list, and it shows right away how to install that. I'm using a Mac, so I'm just going to grab that. I don't need credentials for that, which is nice. So I should be able to use wget or curl. I'm going to go with curl, because I know I've got curl on the Mac. Ctl, and then, yeah. That appears to be working just fine. Excellent, excellent. And it's not that big. It doesn't. I don't have like a crazy good bandwidth on my connection, so that should be done in a few seconds. But in the meantime, it's worth noting that when we're running aquactl, you do need access to the internet to run it, because it does pull its YAML and its configuration from our GitHub. And our GitHub, actually, seeing as I've got it up here, it's just here. It's the Aqua Security Deployments tree, and you can see you can drill down to different orchestrators. I'm using AKS, so I just wanted to show you where all that lives, in case you wanted to just check it out, or I don't know, if you find a mistake, make improvements. Hey, be part of the team. Okay, so that works. Let's enable it to actually be able to run, and let's just bite the bullet and try it. Grab some help. Hey, here we go. Excellent. Now we can already see there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm going to be focusing on deploy, and we can see all the different environments at a glance that we have options to deploy into. But there's lots of things. I can export data from the database. I can manipulate my function assurance or my image assurance. I can inject nano enforcers, and I can manage runtime policies. There's a lot of things I can do that abstract me from the API. I'm going to do another video, in fact, for upgrade as well, because it makes upgrades really easy. It's kind of like a one-shot and we're done. But I'm going to focus today on deployment because for a POC, this is kind of your easiest way just to get started really fast. So let's take a look. Let's take our help to the next level and check out how we can deploy. Or maybe I should say what. I'm going to focus on CSP and Enforcer. Other installations are available, but we're not going to focus on those today because this is all I need to do to get a POC done. And I can take that to the next level. And now I can see that I'm in a bit of a conundrum because this is a lot. Look at that, 2 pages of options. And that is why I'm doing this video, essentially. I just wanted to give you a head start on some of the options that would be really good. So let's take a look at the options I've chosen. And let's look at the one that has been sanitized for our approval. And here we go, aquactl deploy CSP, and there's why I've sanitized it. I like a silent install, so you can see that I've got approve here. Now a great way to test out a script is to leave this out and then put all of the parameters you think you need in here. And if it's missing one, aquactl is great. It will just ask you and say, hey, you're missing platform. What platform did you want to install into? And if it's essential, it just makes a request. In fact, if you run this with no options, it will just ask you the bare minimum of questions it needs to get the job done. And that's kind of how I learned what these parameters should be. So for now, this should just happen pretty much smoothly. I've got my Aqua username and password. These are the credentials I got when I started the POC. And this is my fake password. No way, buddy. Now this is optional, but I like it. I like to have an additional scanner in my early deployments to handle scanning of the registry and the hosts and things like that. There is a scanner built into the server or the console, as we like to call it, but I don't like to burden the console with scanning. If I just deploy one scanner independently, it kind of takes all that stress off of the console, which is already handling the UI and the REST API and other things. So that's just good practice. The version, I'm being really specific about that because I like that. I like to know what version I'm running. This is the latest at the time I'm recording it. I am using AKS, we know that. I'm creating an initial admin password. This is a bit of a misnomer. It doesn't quite tell you that. The default login is administrator, the full word, not admin, so maybe that's a bit confusing sometimes. aquactl will create a default enforcer group. It'll be called aquactl. It'll be obvious when we look. So I like to have a unique token in there, just in case I'm creating aquactl installations in different locations or different consoles. I like it to be unique. So I've called this one Big Scary Enforcer. My namespace is going to be Aqua. That is the default. I could have left this out, but I like to be explicit. We require a storage class for a persistent volume. So we're going to go with the Azure default, which works. And I'm going to put my license in here. Now, this is obviously not my license, but you get the idea. So that should pretty much just work without having to do anything at all. So shall we see if it does work? Okay, well, I'm going to run the real one. And we'll see how it progresses. So this line it's hovering on is already interesting because it's installing our internal database. That's our Postgres containerized database. I could have specified the location and details for an external database already. If I was deploying this into a more real world, dev, pre-prod, prod, a real environment, then I would have that. That's our best practice, is not to necessarily use our container. But for POC, well, that's great because I didn't have to do anything, and I'm going to have an up and running Aqua deployment using a containerized Postgres as my reference for maintaining state, just kind of out of the box. It's nice that it did that without asking me. Now this takes a moment, so we're just going to fast forward a little bit. Okay, that's done, and I did fast forward a little bit. That took about 4 minutes as opposed to the few seconds. So just to let you know how long that actually was. Gateway and server is nowhere near as long as that. That's about a minute or two, but I'm still going to fast forward to the end. All right, that is done. And I tell a lie, that actually took about the same amount of time as the internal database, about 3-4 minutes. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking, how long is this going to take me? At about 6 minutes, 6 to 8, let's say. So what it's doing now is it's trying to auto-validate that the server is successfully up and available. Now the problem we have with this sometimes is that different providers take different amounts of time to allocate an IP address to the load balancer. That is the type that of service that sits in front of our server. And notoriously for AKS, it always takes longer than we have to actually check it. So this is I don't want to say fail, but it's not going to be able to do that. What'll be interesting is what happens after this, and is also part of the reason I like deploying a scanner, is that it's only slightly longer than the timeout. But when I install the scanner, which only takes a few seconds, like you can see now, the time it takes to do that is actually that additional time I need to have my service available, my IP address allocated by Azure, and we're kind of all good. So what I've done is I've taken that suggested command it's just given me there, I've actually incorporated that into my script, along with a get pods for the namespace gateway, so that when it's all done like it is now, I can kind of see everything's good to go, right? I can see my database, my gateway, everything's up and running, everything looks super happy. I can see my scanner's good. And hey, look at that. I can see that my external IP address is ready to rock and roll. I can come over here and I know that I exposed 8080 as part of that deployment by default. Hey, and presto, look at that. I've got a login. Let's give that a shot, shall we? I always find it really hard to spell administrator. I've got my wonky password that I created. And there we go. No LastPass, not today. It's blank. Look at that. We can see the gateway is connecting. This is all looking really good. I can go to gateways. I can see it's there. So I'm pretty much ready now to deploy an enforcer. Let's go back and do that. I want to get everything up and running as soon as possible. Now, if you remember, I have an enforcer script there. Go enforcer, almost lost it. Let's do that. Now, you probably notice there's more things here. We'll do a little tour later. But there are artifacts in this directory, like aquactl and deployment files, that remember what happened during this install. So actually, that's really interesting to know as well. You might want to implement maybe storing these things into GitHub afterwards if you want to repeat this process. So we'll take a look at in a closer sense in a moment. But for now, let's run Go Enforcer. Actually, even better, let's take a look at what's inside Go Enforcer, just just so it's not a mystery. And look how easy that is. I've got my approve, I've got my namespace, I've got my platform, just to make sure we're pulling the right YAML down from GitHub. And remember that token, big scary enforcer. Yeah, I just need to make sure that I use the same one to make sure that everything connects the dots, and we're good to go, right? Well, let's see how long that takes. And you'll be kind of surprised that it's not that long. Or it's, in fact, crazy quick. I won't need to fast forward really at all. And there we go. That didn't really take any time at all, did it? Let's do a quick inspection. Get pods -n aqua. There we go. These guys are up and running. Only been up for 48 seconds. You can already see how long has this taken. Well, look, these pods have only been up for 8 minutes, right? So not too long. Things are moving along pretty quickly. So they're going to register themselves with the gateway. Okay, so we've come back over here. So my enforcers should be here. And there they are. That didn't take long, did it? They're all connected. They all seem happy. aquactl is the default enforcer group I was telling you about. And if we take a quick sneak peek in here and roll down, if you can read the big scary enforcers, there is the deployment and token. Great. They're going to get to work right away, checking the environment within which they're deployed. And actually, the first thing they're going to do is start reporting back to the Risk Explorer, and presto, I can see my Aqua environment. I can see my cube system namespace. So far, so good. But this is kind of boring. Now, what they're also going to do is they're going to start scanning the infrastructure and scanning the host running workloads as well. So all of these are going to start being scanned in my image queue, you can see they're all currently unregistered. And if we look at my settings, I've already got it ticked to automatically scan running containers. So all of this is going to join my image scanning queue right away. But while that's all happening, we don't have to wait for that. I have my sock shop. Everyone knows sock shop. It's a great microservice test app. I'm going to deploy that. Just so I've got something. Oh, I had a little malfunction in my autocomplete, but we're going to, you know what? We're not going to redo this video because I know it's going to work anyway. Oh, I should have started a new shell. Fine, but it works, right? Super duper. Perfect. Now those, let's do it. Let's do this now. Let's back up to our, and get contents of our sock shop namespace, and we can start to see all those containers start to create. And as they flesh out, we're going to see things start to happen. And we come back here, and already if I look at Risk Explorer, I've got sock shop is there. Now there's only a few actually up and running now, but I could maybe refresh. Ooh, and we see a few more. I love how fast it reacts. That's great. And if I go to workloads, I can see my sock shop starting to appear here, the WeWorks demos. So we'll flip back over here. Hey, that looks good now. That looks a lot better. My scan queue has now automatically started to populate with all of the running workloads that Aqua saw. And the Kubernetes cluster. I can see I already have my Kubernetes assessment here, which is looking great, by the way. And that's what I would expect from a current release of AKS. So let's fast forward a little bit and let all of that finish. I'll rest on Risk Explorer for now and come back to you in a minute or two when all of that scanning is done. I think that's probably going to be about 5 minutes. Okay, I fast forwarded a little bit just to let all of this kind of pan out. All of my images are done in my scan queue. I have the risk posture. Maybe I want to filter out some of the more negligible and lows, try and get an idea of where I should focus at the moment. But generally, this is really cool. I can click on my front end, and I can see the risk posture on the whole stack already. So this is awesome. My workloads will be populated. My images are populated. And I'm pretty much good to go. I can add more applications, but there we go. I have a fully functional Aqua installation and an immediate visibility of my risk posture for my application. Cool. Okay, one last important tip that I almost forgot, and that was all those extra things that suddenly appeared in the directory. I didn't really point out what those were. But they're there as a memory so that if I install other things within the same directory, I get some better default context. It's also nice to see that the YAML for what was just deployed is here inside deployment files. So if I want to see exactly what happened in terms of my persistent volumes, namespaces, service accounts, it's all here and I can reuse it if I need. But what's also kind of nice, and you can see that I've got that undo aqua install. If I want to undo what I did, I can just run a kubectl delete deployment files. And I'm right back where I started, and I can try using aquactl again. Okay. How easy was that? 2 commands. Yeah, I had to learn the parameters, but I scripted them all out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that into a GitHub repo under my own name, and I'll put the link in the YouTube video so you can see, and maybe you can go get those if you consider that to be a good starting point. But generally, aquactl, what it took like 10-15 minutes. Yeah, it looks a lot easier than the YAML video where I was cutting and pasting YAML all over the place. And I had to go to the enforcer, create a group and all that. So if you just want to get up and running with a POC and you want to do it super fast, aquactl is a great way to get started in just about any platform. And it gives you some instant familiarity with the other things that aquactl could do to abstract away from the API and potentially even to upgrade, but we'll do that in another video, all right? Okay, hope you enjoyed that. I'm Steve Giguere from Aqua Security. Thanks for watching. Headphones. Ah, the sticker. Yes, that is BeerSecOps. Check it out. It is a incredible DevSecOps podcast you can find on Spotify, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, and all good other sources. Guests so far have been Liz Rice, Andy Martin, Elisa Shafinsky, Kelsey Hightower, Gene Kim, and the list goes on. Check it out at all good sources and give yourself a little bit of extra audio for your lockdown pleasure.